Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. Today we're going to be looking at motivation, how it's applied within the workplace, and how as potential managers you can be able to have employees or create employees that are very motivated at their job. So while we've been looking at organizational behavior and thinking about how we behave as individuals, how others behave, how we can work best with people we are working together, and then all within the context of achieving the organization's objective, motivation is a very key factor in everything I just said, because it depends on your motivation that will determine the work you do. That will determine the input you put within the organization. Depends on the other person's motivation that will determine how serious they'll take the organization they're working with or working in. So motivation is a very key impact or key input when it comes to our final outcome or behavior within the organization. And so today we're going to try to dive in and understand what motivation is. We're going to be looking at a few theories. Yes, I'm going to put this out here as a disclaimer. There are quite a number of theories that we're going to go through, but we'll go through them one after the other and find ways to understand how they all relate back to motivation. So I have this saying here: all employers want motivated employees. Skill alone is not enough, and motivational levels play a significant role in typical performance. So it's one thing for you to actually know the job. It's one thing for you to actually have the skill set needed to get the job done. It's another thing for you to be motivated enough to get the job done. So they are two very different things. I'm sure you all know one or two people that are very skillful. They know how to get things done, a specific thing. Maybe they're good with their hands. They use it good in carpentry. They're good with playing music, or they're good at the job itself. But having the skill is not enough. If they actually don't feel the need, if they don't have the drive to get the job done, no matter how much skill they have, they wouldn't get the job done, and they wouldn't do it in a very good way. And so that is where motivation comes into play. Motivation is what is the major thing that will make a person actually get the job done. And then I have a few things I want us to walk through before we go into real content today. So if you're like me, every morning pre-COVID, when I needed to get to work, to determine what I'm going to wear, to determine how I'm going to feel that day, I usually would play Alexa or ask Alexa, that's the Amazon home device, to see what the weather is. So I would start with, "Hey Alexa, what's the weather?" And on certain days, especially when I used to live in Calgary, Alexa would say, "Oh, there's an extreme cold warning in, let's say, Vancouver. The current temperature is minus 20 degrees. It's a Monday morning. You have an 8 a.m. organizational behavior class. Will you come to class?" That's the question. I really want to know what your answer is. If your answer is yes, the why is your motivation. If your answer is no, the why again is the opposite of your motivation. So like everything behavior related or performance related, there's a positive side and there's a negative side. There are things that would increase your behavior while there are things that would decrease your behavior. So whatever would make you leave your house on a Monday morning by 8 a.m. when it is freezing, it is minus 20 degrees, to go all the way to school or to go all the way to work, that is what motivation is. Now, same scenario as before. I want you to see how motivation changes and how sometimes we have more drive and intensity to get work done compared to in the past. So same behavior, same scenario as before. 8 a.m. Monday morning, you have an organizational behavior class. Now in this specific class, the test is worth 50% of your total grades. If you also pass this test, you automatically get a dream job in the company that you want to work with. Now the question again is, would you come to class? So two scenarios. I'm most likely going to see changes between your answer from the first scenario and your second scenario, because the why has been improved in the second scenario. This is the motivation. What is that thing that is driving you as an individual to get the job done? And so that brings us to definition. When we think about employee motivation, it is the force that is within a person that would affect the direction, what road you're passing, what you're doing, The intensity, how much effort are you putting into this? Are you putting your all into it, or are you just doing the barest minimum? And then the persistence, so every single day you're doing the same thing. You've done it on Monday, you're doing it on Tuesday, you keep pushing through for as long as possible of your effort. So when we're thinking about motivation, we're thinking about what is that thing. Think about it in simple ways as what is that thing that will drive you? What is that thing that will make you put in your all at work? What are those things that will make you to keep going despite the days that you feel like you do not want to go, but you keep pushing? That is what employee motivation really is all about. And based on employee motivation, we're going to see some level of engagement. And so that's why employee engagement is a very key definition that we need to talk about. So engagement is just your emotional and cognitive motivation, particularly focused, intense, persistent, purposive effort towards work-related goals. So because you are highly motivated, you are most likely going to be highly engaged. Because you're highly motivated to get the job done, you have the drive, you're putting in the work, you're putting it over and over and over again, you're going to be quite engaged in actually getting the work done. So that is what engagement is, and engagement is a factor of motivation. Now, within the organization, there are some assumptions concerning motivation. Some of them are right, most of them are wrong. Of the many ones that I want us to think about is this one. There's an assumption that managers have about what motivates employee behavior. And so based on the assumption they have, that is how they would try to manage the behavior of people within the organization. So if I have an assumption that you as an individual, you are motivated by money. If I need you to put in an extra work, I'll tell you, hey, I'm going to pay you extra $10. I'm going to pay you extra $50 per hour. I'm going to pay you an extra $10,000, an extra $20,000, because I believe that you're motivated by the money itself. And so for managers, whatever they think is that thing that makes you work, that puts your drive, that pushes you, that's the force for your effort, that is what they'll try to motivate you by. If I think you're motivated by time off, so you have children, you have family, you'd rather sleep at home, you'd rather be with your family, then the way I'll get you to do a really great job is by telling you that, hey, if you get this job done on time, I'm going to give you a couple of days off. Or if you're able to do this project in such a great way, you're going to have more leave time, more vacation periods, so you can do all the travelings or all the other things that you like. And so at the end of the day, whatever the assumption your manager would have about your work, about what motivates you, is usually what they would try to put into you to make sure that you get the job done. So it's very important that when you're managing people, you do not just make assumptions about what motivates them. You actually engage them in the process of determining what is that one thing, what are those things that will motivate them. Because if not, what is going to happen is you're going to have yourself putting effort into something that doesn't exactly motivate the employees that you're working with. Right. Now, in terms of motivation, there are two major types of motivation. There's intrinsic, which is internal, and then there's extrinsic motivation, which is external. So intrinsic motivation is when we are motivated to do an activity because of its value, because it fulfills our needs directly, usually because it's related to our competency and autonomy. And I'm going to go into this as we keep going ahead. So with intrinsic motivation, this is a drive to do something because of you, because you like how you feel when you do it. I like teaching because I feel like I'm impacting knowledge to someone. I like teaching because I feel like I am becoming a better version of myself if I keep talking and experiencing and sharing my opinion and idea. So my motivation is based on an intrinsic need. It's based on my own individual need, not necessarily because of what I would get, not necessarily because of how others would feel, but more about the value I would get as a person, which usually is more personal, which is more internal. Those are what would fall under intrinsic motivation. Then we have extrinsic motivation, which is motivation based on things that are outside your own control as an individual, so external. So for example, I am working really hard because I will get money from this. Or I'm working really hard because my boss would recognize me and maybe give me Employee of the Month. I'm working really hard because this would lead to a promotion that my boss would give to me. So what I'm really doing is I am doing this work because of bonus, because of recognition, because my boss will be happy, not necessarily because of me, not necessarily because of how I feel, but mostly because of how this is going to affect the other person within the organization. So this is what we call intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, which is just a broad overview of what motivation really looks like within the workplace. Now we're going to go into couple of theories that will help us to understand what motivation is. The first theory we're going to open or go through is Maslow's theory. Maslow is one of the major proponents of a lot of things that are motivation or organizational behavior related. What Maslow did over a period of time is to say that the only way we can understand how people will behave within organizations or how people behave usually within different areas is by understanding their needs. So like we said earlier, motivation is based on your needs. It's based on your needs and your drives. So your drives are the things that will push you to get work done. Your needs are the things that you actually desire to get from the work you're doing. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is the first theory, is telling us that as an individual, you're motivated by the needs you have. Based on where your need level is, that will determine the kind of work you will do, that will determine how you will work, that will determine what kind of job you'll be searching for. So when we think about motivation, I want you to bring it out from the organization's perspective. Think about motivation also from your own perspective. So are you seeing things from the angle of how can I decide on what job to do? Your motivation will be the one that will determine the best job for you. How do I decide on the area of study that I should go into? The question is, what motivates you? That will determine what area of study you should go into. How can I determine what I should do in terms of this job or this offer that I have? It all depends on what motivates you as an individual. So with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it tells us that as individuals, we have 5 major needs. Now, Maslow's theory has been worked on in the past and has probably been edited a few times, but these are the basic needs that I want us to go through. So 5 basic needs. We always will start from the down part here, which is your physiological need. Your physiological need is your need for water, your need for shelter, your need for food, and the basic amenities in life. So when you're looking for a job, most times we all start with physiological needs. When you're looking for a job, before you start thinking of, oh, I want an amazing job that pays me well or that allows me to travel or that I get to meet great people, before you start thinking of those really nice things, the first thing you're usually looking out for is, I just want a job that pays me enough to be able to rent a house. That pays me enough to be able to buy food for myself and my family. That pays me enough to help me get the basic amenities and the basic needs that I have in life. So really what happens when we're thinking of motivation is, for us to be motivated, the first thing we usually try to achieve, or the first needs that we try to achieve, are the very basic needs. Because if you don't have your basic needs, it becomes very difficult for you to actually try or aim for the other needs. Now, from the physiological needs, the next set of needs are your safety and security needs. So you've been looking for a job, you wanted a job that just gave you food, gave you enough money to buy food, gave you enough money to buy all your basic amenities. Now the next thing you're looking for is, okay, I've done this job for a while. I want a job that has some level of safety. I want a job that has some level of security. So what do I mean by safety and security? I'm saying beyond just my basic needs. I want a job that when I wake up tomorrow and go into the office, I still have my job. I want to feel like I count. I want to feel like I would not wake up one day and my job has gone. So think about people that start working and you first start with a part-time job where your hours are based on the needs. We are fulfilling your physiological needs. But moving on, after a while, you don't want to work part-time anymore. You don't want to work in a place where it's based on, oh, we need an extra hand. You want to get to a space where you actually have fixed contracts. So you know you're working for 20 hours. You know you're working for 40 hours. You know how much you're getting paid. You know that they would not fire you without giving you a reason. You know that you would have to go through a lot of performance reviews. So pretty much what is happening is you want a job that gives you some level of safety and you have some level of security. Now, moving on from there, the next need people have is the need for love, the need for social. Because we are created as human beings and we need others to feel like we're whole, sometimes when it comes to our jobs, we're also motivated by this feeling. So we've started with physiological needs. We moved on to safety and security needs. The next is your need for love. So at first, you're looking for just a job that paid. The next thing, you're looking for a job that gives you full hours, where you're sure about sure about your hours, sure about the fact that you do have a job. Now, the next thing you're thinking about is, I want a job where I actually like the people I work with. I want a job where there's some level of community. I want a job where I actually can relate with the people I work with. I like them. We have conversations. I want to feel like I'm a part of the whole society. I want to feel like I'm a part of a community. Usually, when you are still looking for just any job because you need money to pay your bills, yes, having great workers and great colleagues is amazing, but that was not your priority. But because you've achieved those first two needs, you've got into a space where you can start thinking beyond what you need, but beyond what you need in terms of physical things or security, and now thinking about it from the people you want to surround yourself with. And that's the love or social part. Now, moving on from there, we have the self-esteem and self-actualization. The idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that usually we all start down here in physiological needs, and then it goes all the way to self-actualization, self-esteem. But then the truth of the matter is not everyone actually gets to this part, right? So some people with self-actualization and self-esteem were pretty much saying you want to get to a space where you understand yourself. You feel like your value is a lot within this organization. You feel like you're being tasked. You feel like you're growing mentally. So at the beginning, you just wanted a regular job, but at some point, you want a job that tasks you. You want a job where you can think out of the box. You want a job where you can see growth. You want a job where you can actually see your effect on people or your effect on the organization or the effect on the world generally. So that's how we grow in terms of our needs, and this is how we are motivated in the workplace. So the truth of the matter is not everyone goes through all the steps one after the other. Some people actually get all the way to self-actualization without going through maybe love, wanting the need for love or wanting the need for safety and security. It all depends on individuals, but generally this is the hierarchy through which we have our needs. Now, bringing this back to motivation from the workplace, if you're working within an organization or you're a manager, when you understand people's needs, when you understand what level of the hierarchy they are on, and you need to motivate them based on what they want, based on where they are on the hierarchy, it's easier for you to determine what the best way to motivate them would be. Okay, so for example, just a quick example, if someone is at the point where all they really want is, I want a full-time job, and you're trying to motivate them to work, you would not say, oh, I'm promising you that if you really work hard, I'm going to put you in a committee and you're going to be a part of a team and you're going to work with people that you would actually see the same vision and value with. That is nice, but for that person at that point, what they really wanted beyond being a member of a committee was actually just having safety and security, knowing that their job was still there for them. Okay. All right, the next set of theory is the needs theory. Now, it's important for us to know that most of these theories actually have the same background, the same premise. They're just looked at from different angles. So what needs theory is saying is that our needs as individuals can be strengthened or weakened through our identity, through our self-concept, how we view ourselves, through our social norms, through our past experiences, through the things that we've gone through, what would determine what we need is usually shaped. And if we know what our needs are, it's easier for us to get a job that fulfills these needs, and therefore would be more motivated to work within those organizations. So in terms of needs, the McClelland needs theory divides our needs into three different perspectives: our need for achievement, our need for power, and our need for affiliation. With the need for achievement, which is very similar to the self-actualization perspective of Maslow's theory, is a lot of people want to accomplish goals. So while you're looking for a job, it's because you want a job where you can feel like you're accomplishing the right goals. You want a job where you get clear feedback. You want a job where there's moderate risk that is being taken. So we want a job where we can actually see ourselves grow and develop. So if you're working within an organization and you're a manager and you realize that a specific employee has more need for achievement, what you want to do to make them motivated is to make sure that they can see their clear goals. Make sure there's some level of feedback so they can see how they've been performing. Make sure that they are able to work on themselves while working in the job, to feel like they're growing and they're actually developing well on the job. Now, the next one is the need for power. And this is the need for social or personal power. So personal purposes, power for yourself, power to feel good, power to be able to say things and everyone would listen to you. And then social power, power that you can use to get others in a better place. So there's a need for power, which is influence pretty much. We as individuals, human beings, sometimes some of us want influence. So within an organization, this can be by a promotion. If I get a promotion, I will get some level of power. I'll get some level of influence over others. And so what you're really doing is speaking to speaking to individuals and knowing what their need is. If a person is motivated by the need for power, that means if you want them to get the work done, make them a team leader. Make them a committee leader. Make them see how they can produce or make decisions on behalf of other people. And maybe they would feel like to an extent they actually have a say within the organization. Then thirdly, there's a need for affiliation. So need for affiliation is very similar to the social need that we saw earlier in Maslow's theory, which is the need for approval, for us to seek approval from others. The need to be with others. The need to have good relationships with other people. The need to work with people that you actually like. The need to avoid conflict as an individual, when you're working in a place of peace, happiness, harmony, and really working with people that you share very similar values, dreams, and ideas with. So these are the three needs that people have, and what this needs theory is telling us is that the way we gain this need is not just from the top of our head. Most of the time, the learned needs theory pretty much is gained from our learnings, from our experience. So based on how you were brought up, if you're brought up in a space where power was the most important thing, you most likely will be motivated by power. If you're brought up in a place where family, love, sharing, caring is the most important thing, you're going to be looking for all of that within the workplace that you work at. If you're brought up in a space or over the years you've put most of your emphasis on how much you can accomplish as an individual, when you're trying to be motivated within the workplace, that is pretty much what you're going to be looking out for. You'll be looking out for how to achieve or how to accomplish goals within the workplace. All right. Now, the third theory we're going to look at is the four drives theory. So just like all the other theories we've looked at, the four drives theory is saying that as individuals, we are motivated by our drive. And our drives are divided into four. There's the drive to acquire, that's to seek, to get, to control objects and experiences. The drive to bond, social again, which is to form social relationships, develop mutual caring and commitment with other people. The drive to comprehend, which is our need to satisfy our curiosity, to know and understand ourselves, to think beyond the box and actually experience the things around us. And then finally, the drive to defend, which is the need to protect ourselves, whether physically or socially or even as many other ways as possible. So what this theory is telling us is as individuals, we have these four things that are our drives, whether we want to acquire, we want to bond, we want to comprehend, we want to defend ourselves, defend our family, etc. And all of these would make us become directed. We will direct all of this to our goal and to our choice and effort. So if I feel like this particular job is going to give me more experience that will help me to acquire more knowledge, will give me more experience to allow me to associate with more people, which will give me the opportunity to bond, will give me the need to satisfy my level of curiosity, then I most likely will put all my effort into that specific task or into that specific activity. So really, like most of the other theories, they are usually formed based on our social norms, what we're used to, based on our personal values, based on our past experience, and all of this will determine what would be motivated by and how we would actually get the job done. Now, the fourth theory, which is one of the major theories, is the expectancy theory of motivation. What the expectancy theory tells us is, as an individual that is motivated to get work done, really, our motivation is based on probability. And not just any form of probability. Probability that if we put in a specific effort level, we're going to get a specific performance, and that will give us a specific outcome that we want. So going by this, what we're saying in expectancy theory is we always believe that our effort, the amount of time you put into a specific job, into a specific assignment, would lead to the kind of performance that you have. So you kept in 10 hours of studying for your assignment. So you wrote your assignment feeling very great, or you wrote your test thinking, I really nailed that particular test. And based on that, there are several outcomes you could have. There's an outcome you could be very high, there could be a moderate outcome, and there could be a low outcome. So your whole goal is, if you get a high outcome, if you get an outcome that is very similar to what you expected, you'll be more motivated to put in the work. However, if you get a motivation that is not up to the level that you expected, you would not be motivated, or if you get an outcome that is not up to the level you expected, you will not be motivated to put in the work as time goes on. So I'm going to take that again. The expectancy theory of motivation is telling us that as individuals, our motivation is based on how much effort, the probability that a specific level of effort will lead to a specific performance, which would also lead to a specific outcome. So if I put in 10 hours of work studying for a test, I believe that by the time I write a test, I would do really great. Now, if after writing the test, I felt, I nailed this test, and then the result for my test comes out, if I get exactly the grade I thought I worked hard for, I would feel very satisfied. And so next time, I'll be very motivated to put in the same hours to get the work done. But if after putting all these hours into the assignment, I then get a low mark, or putting all these hours into the test, I then get a low mark. If that is the case, I will most likely lose my motivation. Or if I have kept in almost no time, almost no effort, and I get an A, next time I'll say, okay, I don't need to work so hard anymore because apparently it's very easy for me to get an A. So what this theory is saying is, how your effort leads to performance and how it leads to outcome would be what would determine your behavior, or how you behave, or your motivation within the organization. So quick ones that I want us to quickly look at is, between effort and performance, we have the E to P expectancy, which is the probability that a specific effort level will lead to a specific performance level. Then we also have the performance to outcome expectancy, which is also your probability that a specific performance level will result in specific outcomes. So I think I've done my all in this assignment. I think I've really done everything that can be done. Now, how much probability is it that I'll actually get the outcome that I want? And then your valence is the anticipated satisfaction from the outcome. So if you get 100 out of 100 in a test, and that you felt you kept in so much work to, you probably will feel very high in satisfaction. If you got, let's say 50 over 100 in a test that you felt like you really did well, you most likely will have a low valence, which is a low satisfaction from your outcome. Or if you get 0 out of 100 for a test that you thought you did absolutely amazing on, you most likely would be very frustrated by what your outcome is. Now, when we think about expectancy theory in practice, so for example, E to P, which is your effort to performance expectancy, the objective here really is just to increase your belief that you are capable of performing the job successfully. So in you doing this within the organization, make sure that the people that actually are being employed are people that have the required skill sets. Make sure you're providing required training. Make sure they have sufficient time and resources. Assign them to simpler or fewer tasks until the employees can master them. So what we're really trying to do here is when we want to improve expectancy from E to P, that's effort to performance, how can we do that? These are the things that you can do. If you're trying to improve performance to outcome expectancy, which is pretty much you trying to increase the employee's belief that his or her good performance will result in certain valued outcomes, what you want to do is to make sure that the job is measured accurately, explain the outcomes that will result from successful performance, let there be very clear feedback, and then also make sure that the rewards are based on performance. And then finally, your outcome valence, which is the final part of the expectancy theory. The whole objective there is to ensure that the employee's expected value of outcomes results in his desired performance. And in getting this done, what you're trying to do is to make sure that you distribute rewards effectively, you individualize rewards, and you minimize the presence of countervailing outcomes. Now, the fifth theory that I want us to go through is the social cognitive theory. Now, the social cognitive theory is quite simple. What it really tells us is, as individuals, our behavior is usually based on our social being. Our social being, which pretty much means that based on what we've learned, that would be what would determine our behavior. Sometimes our behavior is based on the people that we see as well. And then sometimes our behavior is based on how we've identified ourselves and regulated a lot of things within ourselves. So pretty much what the social cognitive theory is telling us is, you as an individual, your behavior, what is motivating you is going to be based on observing consequences of other people's experiences. So for example, a lot of us will go and, let's say, rate my prof, to see what comments others have given about a particular professor. And so if you've heard over the years that, oh, this particular professor, even if you write the best assignment, you write the best test, she or he always fails you because they're such a strict marker. You're going to already have a perception about this person. And so in the classes, you might not be motivated to work hard because you already know, based on what you've heard, based on what you've seen, that, oh, this particular professor would not give you good grades. Or if you've heard a lot of times that, hey, you know what, for you to actually get good grades in this particular professor's class, what you have to do is to be very communicative, send messages as soon as possible, be a part of conversations, etc. What you really want to do is think back. When you are relating with this with this professor, you most likely are going to be emulating some of the things you've heard. So you want to get a good grade. You've heard in the past that this particular professor is really great when it comes to would give you good grades if you actually put in your best, if you put in your all, if you're always talking, if you're part of conversations, if you always share in the discussion post. So you most likely would also do all of that just because you've heard over the past that this is what works. Or if every time a professor comes into your class and says, oh, I really like the student because you always contribute, and then you always start watching, how does this student contribute? What are they doing? And so what we're really doing is we're probably observing and modeling our behavior based on what a person has done that we know that has been positive to them. Or if it's negative, if we know that someone has done something in the past and it was negative, and then we decide not to do that specific thing, we're then modeling our behavior based on the consequences from other people's experience and other situations. All right. So as individuals, really what happens is we usually self-regulate. So we engage in intentional, purposeful action. We usually set our goals, set our standards. We usually anticipate consequences, and we reinforce our own behavior, which is called self-reinforcement, over a period of time, and it becomes a part of us and becomes our norm. Now, the next theory I want us to see is the goal setting theory. Now, the goal setting theory is probably one of the most common theories because we talk about this even outside academia. With goal setting theory, this is just pretty much you setting up an idea of what you want to achieve over a period of time. So if you already know what your desired results are, then you're able to guide your behavior and direct your behavior to achieve that goal. So within the organization as well, if you want your employees to be very motivated, maybe have that conversation with them to see what exactly their end goal is. So where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 6 years? Where do you see yourself at the end of this year, at the end of this quarter? Now, based on the goals that they want to achieve, so I want to make a sale of $100,000 every year. What do I need to do to get those goals done? So what do I need to do to achieve that goal? I need to make calls. I need to come into the office on time. I need to send out emails. I need to go for conferences. I need to reach out to people. I need to network. So all your behavior is then targeted to that specific goal. So in terms of setting goals, usually would use either the SMART goals, the smarter goals. With the SMART goals, it's saying this goal must be specific. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve? Where do you want to achieve? When do you want to achieve it? The next is it must be measurable. How would you measure it? How much? So you want to achieve sales at the end of a quarter. How much sales do you want to achieve? How many customers do you want to have reached out to? How many businesses do you want to have on your platform? It must be achievable. So while sometimes it's great for you to think way out of the box and think into the stars, for you to be motivated to keep working, the goals that you set for yourself must actually be achievable. So when we're saying it's achievable, that means it's not in the moon. It's things that are challenging, but it's possible for you to work towards them. So that brings us back to the expectancy theory. The effort to the performance must be relative. It must actually be doable. All right. It must be relevant. So it has to be within the employee's control. I would not expect your lower level employee to be the one to grow the organization itself or to create strategies and structures for the organization. Absolutely not. It must be time frame to put specific dates and time. That way it's easier for you to actually achieve it and know what you're supposed to do. It must be exciting. So there should be some level of commitment. There should be some level of need to do it and not just, oh, I have to do this goal just because it's expected, because if not, I would not get a good grade, or if not, I will lose my job. Employees might actually enjoy achieving these goals. If not, that might be a problem. And then it should be reviewed. So in terms of being reviewed, there should always be feedback. Never expect everything to just work the way it should work. Have that conversation. How are you doing with your goals? Set $100,000 goal for the end of the period of time. Are you able to achieve it? What do you need? How can I help you? What do we need to achieve this goal together, etc.? So it must be reviewed over a period of time. So feedback is very important. And when you're giving feedback, what are you looking at? Make sure it's just very similar to SMART. It's specific, it's relevant, it's timely, it's credible, it's coming from the right source. And then usually there's enough information within the feedback. And now the final theory that I want us to quickly look at is Adam's theory of inequity. Now what Adam's theory is telling us is, a lot of times the way you behave is based on your perception of truthfulness and equity. So if I believe that if I put in all the work, I actually get the same result compared, so the other part is comparatively, compared to others, then I would most likely be very motivated to work. So I'm in a team of 2 people. I bring in 10 hours of time, I get an A. My colleague brings in 10 hours of time and she also gets an A. Because I feel like there's some level of equity, next time I'll be really motivated to work. But if I put in 10 hours of time and I get a C, and then my colleague also puts in 10 hours of time, but she gets an A, then I'm going to feel like there's some level of unfairness. I'm going to feel like there's some level of inequity. And based on that, I most likely will not be as productive again within the organization. So Adam's theory of inequity is saying that as individuals, we always want to be motivated based on the fact that there's some level of equity and there's some level of fairness. So this is what it really looks like. To define what equity is, usually we'll say, what is your outcome over your input? We usually will compare it to another person's outcome and their input. So like I said earlier, maybe for you it is getting an A. So let's say you got an A here, which is your outcome, and then you are kept in 10 hours. So based on your skills, your effort, your performance, your repetition, the hours experience, you're kept in 10 hours. And then someone else gets an A, but only kept in 5 hours. This can show that there's some level of imbalance, and because of that, you will not be motivated to work anymore. Now let's think about it from another angle. Maybe you're earning $30,000, and then you're putting in a certain amount of work. Let's say 50, you have the experience, you have the yearly qualification, and you've put in so much work, but someone else within the organization is doing less work than you are, but they're earning exactly the same amount as you are earning. You're most likely going to feel like there's some level of unfairness. And if you feel like there's some level of unfairness, you would most likely not put in as much work into the organization. So pretty much what we're saying here is you would be motivated to work when you feel like there's equity. Your inputs, your outcomes, the other person's output and other person's input are all the same, and then you will see some level of motivation. Now there's an example I want us to think about, but before we go there, let's look at this. So in terms of inequity, when there's inequity within the organization, what do we usually do? A lot of us, we're going to either reduce our input. So I'm putting in 10 hours, I'm not getting the same result as someone else that is putting in less hours. So you know what? I'm not going to put in more hours anymore. I'm going to really not care about this job anymore. Or we increase our outcome. So if I feel like I'm getting paid less compared to how much time and energy I actually put within the organization, I most likely will reach out to my manager and ask, hey, I feel like I'm putting in so much time, but I'm not even getting any time in return. Can I please get my pay increase? I think I'm doing way more than I'm actually being paid. So what we'll try to do is to increase our outcomes. Or sometimes we try to increase the other person's input. So I'm putting in 10 hours, I'm getting an A, you're putting in 5 hours, we're all within this project, we're all getting the same A. I don't think that's fair. So you also have to put in 10 hours so that we can all feel like we're putting in exactly the same hours and getting exactly the same result. Or I might try to reduce the other person's output. So if I feel like someone is getting more pay than I am and they're putting in less work, I might reach out to my manager and say, hey, I'm not sure why this person is getting more pay. Or if you've done a project or done an assignment with someone else and then you're getting an A, yet you kept in all the work and the other person kept in almost no work, you probably reach out to your professor and say, hey, I'm not sure why this person is getting just the same grade as I am if they're not putting in the work. Maybe we need to revisit how much they're getting from this entire project. Or you can change your perception. So maybe this person is getting more value just because they have something that I don't even have, and so you don't see it as inequity. Or you can change the comparison order. So if we've tried all the above and it doesn't work and we don't want to feel very frustrated, another thing you can do is, okay, maybe I won't compare myself with Debbie. Maybe I'll just start comparing myself with someone else. So let's see, is Jordan getting the same result as me? Yes, Jordan is, and he's putting in the same time. Okay, for my peace of mind, I'll focus on comparing myself with Jordan. Or what some people will do is they will leave the field. So I don't feel like I'm getting in the right effect, or I don't feel like I'm getting in the right outcome for all the work I put in. I think maybe I'll just leave this organization. So these are things that people do when they feel like there's some level of inequity within the organization. And I have this short scenario I want you to think about. So you've been working in, let's say, BIC Consulting as a general sales advisor for 5 years. You've gotten no promotion, nothing at all. Now, last month, your manager employed a new sales advisor that performs exactly the same job as you, even though this person has only 2 years of sales experience. Now, just this week, you found out that this new person even also earns $10,000 more than you. How would you be motivated to work hard in this organization? How would you handle the situation? So these things about equity theory, Adam's equity theory. In this situation, what we have here is you're putting in more work, yet you're not paid as much. You have more experience, yet you're not paid as much. Now the question is, what would you do? Okay, so these are the 7 theories that really talks through what motivation is, and then how we can see it within the organization. Now we're going to moving forward later on to see how these things can be applied within the organization beyond just the concept of the theories, but also seeing how we actually feel motivated to either work or not work within the organization. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you actually got benefit from this. Bye.